This is the Manufacturing Automation Podcast. I'm Michael.
And I'm Matt. In this podcast, we're going to discuss growing companies, automation and manufacturing,
and how we're building the lives and businesses we want to see in the world.
Let's just start, what have you been up to this week? And we'll just kind of see where it goes.
Yeah, I guess I got my calendar or how deep we want to go into this, but it's oddly been a lighter week for me. We've gone through a lot of growth. We've offloaded a lot of my tasks onto other team members. And my week's been looking at, all right, what are the next steps to where we're focusing on to grow this business again, or increase our efficiency so we can get more done with our existing team. What the team needs for support has probably been the big things.
Gotcha. Are you still the bottleneck in your business?
No.
It's
a really weird, this is an odd week for me of freedom, let's say, where I haven't had this amount of time to reflect on where all my time goes and what else is where can I really optimize further, or this week I was looking at tools to just weird things to improve the business that definitely didn't need to be done.
That's where you want to be though, working on the business on it.
Yeah. And I love that part. It's just I haven't had that since, let's say, April. So we went through a big growth phase, a lot of stress, a lot of changes, a lot of projects needing to get done. And so April until beginning of August was just hammer time, let's say.
Yeah, we've been in about the same boat because we doubled in headcount between February and August. And that was a nightmare. And we actually started a EOS implementation this week. So I think I was telling you about that
a
couple weeks ago.
Started that already.
Okay. So here's the thing. We try to do, EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system, on our own, because there's these guys called integrators who, come into your business, and they're an outside consultant. So they're, $1 bajillion, like you expect an outside consultant to be.
Oh yeah. We've looked at it.
Yep. And, lo and behold, the guy told us that, yeah, you can try, but, most companies fail doing it on their own. And we tried it. We failed doing it on our own because things were hectic. And then, there wasn't the accountability because I was getting pulled on to projects again. And all of a sudden, a month later, I'm the bottleneck. So we decided to pull the trigger to start that, spendy process. But, when we were doing it, it was really helping making the business run on its own.
What's the monthly spend, if you can share that?
So, all the guys have their own rate, but it's typically for the first year, 5 sessions, which are all day. And
that's it.
They're typical. Well, yeah. And there's the policy with all of them is you can call them whenever, you can ask for advice, but that's always, but typically it's going to be $3,000 to $6,000 a session.
Okay.
So doing the implementation, budget definitely 15 to 30 grand if you want to do it as a paid. But, the way that we tried doing it on our own, just the staff of having 4 or 5 people from your leadership team pulling, that's actually a more serious cost when you do the math. And if you fail in the initiative, where we kind of slowly backed off over time, then, it ends up costing you more.
Yeah.
At least that's how I'm justifying it to myself.
So you're basically going to end up spending $50,000 easily there, let's say, in the next 12 months.
Oh, no. It'll be 30 grand. Yeah. For us.
Oh, okay. I thought it was an initial first meeting was more initial ramp up. And then it's just 30 grand. Okay.
Yeah. And every implementer is different. That's probably on the more expensive end of things. We have had a lot of money in accounts receivable. So we negotiated with our implementer to do it as monthly payments, which is much smoother because the first 3 sessions were in the first 3 months. So your 18 grand out of 30 is all up front. And I was that was more my hesitation than the total cost. We're probably 50 grand in IMTS prep at this point.
How much?
So 40, 50 grand. Yeah.
Okay.
IMTS.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing the cost of trade shows though. So you have $40,000 to $50,000 into that. How are you tracking those costs?
Well, that's what's hard is what do you amortize as a, okay, we're going to have this next time. And there's a lot of hidden costs, at least, what we've seen with IMTS is, okay, we spend $15,000 for the, cool. That's done. But then you check, you need air and you got to rent that by the day. to run a little demo machine. Your 15 grand comes with 3 amps and a single outlet. So you got to buy an airline. And the most recent thing that was a bit of a kicker was, well, we got a call from them like, hey, you didn't get flooring. We asked, well, like, yeah, can we just be on the cement? And they're like, no, we're going to come and we're just going to bill you double if you don't throw out the floor now.
You don't want to be on this cement. I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. But
like we pay for the double padded foam to give you an idea.
Yeah.
Having done so many trade shows, you want the most expensive carpet they can give you, like, or padding wise. You don't care what the carpet looks like. You care what's under it.
Yeah. So yeah, we had all the show costs, right? And then we had to build this like big crate, which is like 4 by 8 by 4 feet, which turns out like, we built it and now it's not even like, we barely cram everything into it. So once we get a bigger booth, it's not going to be enough. And then the big thing for us is we've been building this demo robot. And that was one of those things where I'm like, I'm going to do this project. So I jumped on and, worked the crazy hours and kind of put my blinders on to build this little CNC robot. And of course, it's like every piece of custom automation machinery. I kind of do girl math when it comes to CNC machines. I'm like, oh, it's going to cost $4,000. And then, of course, it ended up costing $10,000 before you even take into account my time. And, normally if I were just like billing clients, I'd bill like $600 an hour for like the contract manufacturing side of our business. So that has been a serious spend, but that's the typical business question of like, well, we're going to use this ongoing. So we amortize it. But yeah, it's definitely a 40 to 50 grand cash hit just to do IMTS.
Yeah, it's amazing. Because we have that MRS robot system that we tracked. I think we ended up with 300 and some hours of just engineer time into it. So yeah, you look at that. That was we did as a partnership with a distributor. So we had all the parts donated to us actually.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so they're now repping it and selling it. And then the agreement is that we use it. So I guess that's a plug for TechMaster distributors in the Midwest. They're now pushing that. And then when we built more, we just use those parts that they wrap. So it's really good relationship to have with them.
Yeah, that seems, I saw the MRS and I was like, finally someone using a cobot correctly. The thing, it's not strapped to a CNC mill or like doing something. It does exactly the thing it's supposed to do and plate that makes perfect sense.
I'm glad you recognize that because I have this distaste for most cobot applications. Is probably the best way to put it. Everybody looks at a cobot and they think that it's so high value because, it's a little bit cheaper. This perception that you are is created is so frustrating. Because you should just spend more and put an industrial robot in it because you're going to make more money.
That's the thing. It's like anywhere where you have a really confined process, where you have a certain level of throughput that you just should have. First off, like a rotary or like style robot is not the best choice most of the time. Right. And then anywhere you have a constrained area that it doesn't have personnel in it, a cobot's going to add 200% of the cost to get the same output. But then the lifetime of the joints and the level you have to replace it is so much higher. So the running cost is exponentially higher.
That's the one that's missed. Your setups might be near the same, but your throughput and your life of machine costs are completely different metrics. But that's the girl math as you put, not building CNCs that I think business owners they lie to themselves on that.
And I guess I'm a little bit jaded from it, and I've been accused of being a cobot hater. But like I love cobots from the applications, but it's just whenever I see like a CNC machine moving around a 1 pound part, instead of the machine doing it, instead of even a pallet change or something doing it, when I see a $100,000 cobot integration, I just want to bury my face in my hands. We talk with business owners all the time, and they're like, "Well, I believe in the cobot," and then like clockwork, a year later, that they don't have the apps engineer to run it, or the joint goes out. And it's like, even like a pallet changer, like a Mideco pallet changer would have been a way better solution. A Kirsten pallet would have been a way better solution.
That's why I love your product. When you brought up the idea of discussing this podcast, I think it makes a lot of sense for both of us. We're so well aligned on the way that manufacturing and automation should be done to create value for the end customer or the owners of the business. So that's at the end. these are tools. These machines are meant to make you money. Yeah, they're fun, but let's make money with them too, so you can go buy the other things you want.
Yeah, I think that's one place that we like really are aligned on value is that, or in terms of like core values in EOS speak on it is like the idea of delivering value to the customer. And I actually had a horrible experience with one vendor. I won't use their name or anything that really put my perspective and my team's perspective, like, like shine a light on it, on how different it is than some like other businesses. So,
Yeah.
we paid this guy to connect us with, sales reps, right? So, it wasn't expensive. It's $1,000. We pay him to connect us with sales reps to potentially sell our product. And he does the bare minimum but the sales reps aren't very good. When we vet them with our internal sales guy and we decide, okay, we're going to cancel the thing. And so we email them and say, hey, we're not going to refresh this. And exactly 30 days later, he emails back, well, actually in the contract, it says that you had to send me a certified letter. And so you still owe us $1,000. And I was just like, and I emailed back, I'm like, you didn't provide any value for us. And like, that's the one thing that really hit me is like, everything that we do is like, if there's a problem with the product or if there's, the thing I hate seeing more than anything else is a spindle gripper sitting on a shelf. And it was really eye-opening to see somebody who was just like, running a business, but all in it for them. And where it was like, they don't even care about the outcome for the customer. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to continue to come across that.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
always some of those people that get core values, personal things out of whack. Sometimes we don't know why that happened either. Sometimes people just get put in a bad position.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, man.
takes two. And so,
And I think anyone who's been in business long enough has been in like those difficult conversations. Right.
yeah, it's easy to become very bitter,
Yeah.
sour, and
Yeah.
just
And that one was unique
much.
because it was so like black and white of like, oh, the guy waited a month to even tell us that we had to send a certified letter. But and it was like $1,000. So it was just funny. Right.
What that tells you is he's done that before.
Oh yeah. And it's like, wow. I just saw that. I'm like, that's so scummy that I'm sure I'll cut some of this conversation.
Oh, you're fine. I think this is
Yeah.
actually an interesting conversation because I'm trying to think of a good comparison to give you that I've come across, but there's definitely been, everybody's had those pain points in business where it's like, why did this person do this? Like, it
Mhm.
makes no sense.
Yeah. And something else that we've encountered before when we were doing more contract manufacturing was like when a customer would like, issue a change order and then just like refuse to acknowledge it or pay for it. Now that's been I don't know if you've ever seen something similar in like where,
Uh, the one we'll continuously see is point of contact on projects changing. So we're
oh
building
yeah,
machines
yeah.
that take, let's say 6 months to 2 years to build. We've had three changes of point of contact within the schedule of one machine build before. And what that results in is you having to resell that machine internally, except for
Mhm.
now you can't rescope it without a cost.
Right.
And you're probably already sunk far enough into it. So you're trying to sell something that's defined to that person and everybody wants to have their input, which is great. But it's this communication that has to happen. And that's something that always just costs us money. And so that's an interesting challenge that we run into as we go through these projects. We always look at it as, all right, we're trying to be the best for the customer. Our goal is to get follow-up projects. So maintain the relationship. It's always been our approach to it. But those cost us significant
Oh yeah.
dollars or energy that I have to work with them through that where I could have been selling something else. But at the end of the day, it's all right. We're going to get another project. Is the
Mhm.
way we look at it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. That's always it's always a challenge. Yeah. And you definitely on those like larger scale projects, you definitely make concessions to keep the right customer happy. And it always depends on who it is and how reasonable they are. And at the end of the day, like I think where we always draw the line is like, we try to track what the cost of the project is. And it's like, if stuff is going sideways, I'll pull all the way back to break even. But like, that's the line, right? Where like, and assuming that there's like a lifetime value to that customer and that we want to keep
Yeah.
working with them.
No, that's exactly. I mean, we've had projects that you lose money on, but there's also that point of amortization that you were talking about. So if you're developing IP or things that can be used on other projects too, because that's one thing we do with a lot of our builds is if the customer doesn't care about the IP, we retain that so we can invest further into our software, build that architecture. But then the value they get is they get to leverage the ecosystem we've built of technology so we can build their project faster. They get more features that really don't cost much more money because we just that system.
Yeah, we do the same thing with the spindle grippers to an extent. So like generally when we have like something that triggers a situation, like we have a unique turnkey that has a certain geometry of part,
Yeah.
or we have a new machine brand, like we recently added Herco to like the compatibility lineup. When we do,
Awesome.
when we do that, we go and say, hey, we'll actually write your project at a discount, but it's going to take longer. You have to understand it's like part of the R&D process for us.
Yep.
And we lose money on every single time we do a new machine brand or we do, a new implementation. We just like flushed out the macros to do magazine loading rather than just like, XY grid loading. And, we are very upside down on like that one trick, but it's such a slam dunk win because then we're able to take that and then all the subsequent turkeys. Now we can just, it becomes a 4-hour task instead of a 4-week task.
Do you run that? So you don't necessarily have to be completely upside down on that. If you track that as an R&D project, you can get tax
Oh yeah.
credit
Yeah.
with that. So like there's ways around that as a small business, just because, we're not, the Apple or something like that. We have options on taxes there that are really beneficial. Talk to your accountant. They might be
Oh
able
yeah. I
to,
mean, that's an accounting nuance, right? When I say I'm upside down, like what we would really like from an accounting perspective say, hey, $2,500 of direct labor costs, with contributing this progress. So there's a gross margin there.
yeah,
But I tend to think like, okay, this cost us $10,000 to do. We bill the customer $6,000.
I see.
But yeah, we're not literally upside down. Like it's an awesome business move. But that it's easy to feel like that in the short term, right?
Yeah, that's what I call the
Yeah.
farmer mentality. Having grown up on a farm,
Yep.
farmers are always broke, but somehow they still have a pile of assets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's growth eats cash for breakfast. I like to say R&D eats
Exactly.
cash for breakfast because they both will really quick.
Oh yeah, it's very true.
Yeah. Do you have any like new initiatives in the pipeline, or are you really just focused on figuring out how to work on business right now?
Yeah, I guess what are you classifying as new initiatives?
And just anything you've been working on, anything that's exciting you, um, the anything new?
Yeah, really ours is driving efficiency and processes. So our kind of mission, if you will, or what we're really pushing on the marketing, sales, growth of business is we want to be starting a project or a turnkey automation system every single. So it's a $500,000 project every month is our goal on that average rounding. We're not there yet. So
Yep.
we're not there. We can start one a quarter right now is really where we're at is one large automation project. Uh, Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be able to start one every other month, but it's really getting the team what they need to support that initiative. So what tools do they need? What processes do they need? What do we need to change? Like you said, when you grow your team that much,
Mhm.
everything breaks.
Oh
So we
yeah.
changed the entire meeting structures, the way we're doing notes, the way we're keeping everybody updated on that. You're doing EOS, we're doing the small business flight plan is really the big thing for the process we're using. It's just a simpler, lighter lift, if you will, that we can. So we'll see how EOS works versus small business flight plan.
Oh, I think any of them will work. It's like choosing a diet, right? Like if you're going to go choose like the carnivore diet, but then the next week you decide you're a vegan and you keep jumping, one thing to another, it's hard to follow the recipe.
Exactly. So that's what we're sticking to. We've got another CNC that we bought that's coming in as well to support the team.
What'd you guys get?
We got a BVM 5700.
EVM. Never,
So
is the brand.
Doosan or
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Doosan or
EN.
DN.
Mhm.
Yep.
Cool.
So it's a bridge down mill basically. A little bit larger than 4020, but yeah, nice little system.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
There's
Throw a
a
spindle gripper on that.
we don't run any value. Yeah, that
No,
was
I'm
actually
just messing with you.
true. Like I'm gonna be down at IMTS now too, by the way.
Oh,
So
cool. Yeah.
David, our CNC machinist, and I decided today or last night, we were messaging after you messaged me. It was like, all right, I want to see Michael. There's a couple other booths I want to see. We're going to swing down there for a day and make sure to hit a couple spots. So yeah, I want to see your stuff. And that's where the conversation of putting a spindle gripper on the BVM kind of came up. And it was like, you don't run any volume. Like us
Oh, yeah.
running 5 of the same part is a lot.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're just not the spindle gripper guy. And we have, honestly, as we've been doing this longer and longer, I'm actually less fond of selling to like the small job shop with like 3 or 4 guys, because especially the smaller shops, like a lot of the time, like the most common differentiator is like, oh, we do prototype quantities, which is like sub 10, or, we do stuff really, really fast.
Yeah.
And like where I'm really starting to say, hey, like a spindle gripper is a slam dunk for the customer every single time, is like if it's a one-off system and there's more than 50 parts, or if there's a 2-off system and there's more than like 200 parts. But,
Yeah.
when you're not regularly hitting those thresholds, we're kind of at the point, like, I don't want to sell someone a system unless they're going to be able to, again, I hate to see the stuff sit on a shelf. And when it's a big company, when it's a production, when you're making your own product, spindle grippers are slam dunk every time, but it's hard to automate a desktop environment.
It's it. So we should chat about, maybe this isn't online or offline. Maybe you want it on here, is us putting those in for you. Cause I can think of several shops where I've gone in to automate, and machine tending hasn't been the area that we want to focus.
Yeah.
Cause I kind of have the same concept you do. I don't think cobot's the right application.
Mhm.
I do the math and it's like, okay, you've got a $125,000 Haas there, robo drill, whatever it is.
Right.
And then you want to spend $100,000 on a cobot card fixturing for that and somebody to deploy it for you. It's going to easily cost you $100,000. And my math is buy another machine.
Oh yeah. And that's actually why I invented the spindle gripper. Like, and I say invented, there have been spindle grippers for a while, but, there wasn't anything that could do through spindle air, through spindle coolant. At the time, it was like just before COVID hit, so we were 4 guys and I was still running the machine. And then we had like this little production job come up. I was like, screw that. I'm not going to sit there in front of the machine. So I like automated a Kurt Weiss with this big hydraulic thing. It was like hooked up to a car battery and the relays on the back of the Haas. And then I built this little, bypass block spindle gripper thing. The first one was awful, but
Every prototype is. No, it was perfect. If it was off, it was perfect because you learn.
So, yeah. But I built this thing, and it actually, it sort of kind of worked. And I didn't revisit it until after this, big 3D printing failure where, I invested $400,000 in the metal 3D printing initiative and that failed. And when we were looking for a product, I was like, oh, wait a minute. But before I even started doing the spindle gripper R&D, I looked at the existing systems. I was like, well, the Shelk stuff and was like the only option really. And it was going to cost us probably $30,000. And we'd had to figure out everything from the ground up. And I was like, well, let me just build a system. And yeah, it took me time to come back to it, really polish it. But now the one-off system, like we sell a little package, it's like $4,500. And it's such a slam dunk, like even just Auth0 dovetail like stuff. If you're making more than 50 of that part a month, you can get ROI in a week or a couple weeks. I mean, even the like $20,000 turkeys, we're seeing customers, or the right aerospace shop, it's 1-2 weeks ROI. It's crazy.
Yeah. And that's where I was going with the initial part of what you want on or off on this call was us helping deploy them for you on what a relationship like that might look like.
Oh yeah. We actually are already doing it. So I'd love to have you guys as a distributor. So
yeah, let's talk about that. I'd be interested in setting, because I'm in on average 1 to 3 facilities, either virtually or physically.
Yeah.
So they're not all machine shops, not all of them have that, but I come across a lot of areas where it's like, I can't help you, but the gimbal system could.
Right. Yeah, I mean, just like blanket speaking, we can get into the details offline, but generally what we do in that situation, we have some distributors already, so we kind of know, how to set it up. We either kind of view you as like wholesaler or an integrator. So you'd be on the integrator side. So, we would basically, you would still sell the hardware, but we would essentially you'd buy it as you need it. So you capture 10% margin on that, on the actual hardware, but then you're capturing all the integration. And for, the typical, like our cliche package is a 2-watt pallet system, a gripper and a vacuum. it almost always comes out to, just under 20 grand. So, you're generally capturing, 100% of that, $6,000 to $8,000.
Because what I really see the value is from develop's perspective is it opens up the door because a lot of people are hesitant towards automation, but
Yeah.
$20,000 is so easy to bite off. And it's trying to find those first projects or loss leaders, if you will, to get in the door for a lot of bigger projects for people. And that's what I really like about your product on. We can get people thinking more about automation with the gimbal system. And now they start thinking, all right, man, I send all these parts to assembly and Jim and Sharon and Joe spend their entire time pressing bearings in and screwing these
Right.
things together. Now it's like, okay, now we put a Skira in there and some type of pole feeder for these
Right.
screws. We can be automating that next step.
For sure. Yeah. And like the thing too, people really seem to have used nail grippers, like from the conversations we've had. I mean, we have a real market education problem because, I was talking to John Saunders like a week ago and he's like, look, you have a difficult position because you're trying to trailblaze. And I was like, yeah, I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
We have a hard time convincing people like that their spindle can take the load of a 2-pound part when it's taking 2,000 pounds of cutting force, right? Like, we have a hard time convincing people that like their CNC machine is accurate enough. And you're like, we're holding 4/10 on the machining of this part. We can move it like 2 orders of magnitude more precisely than that cobot you're using now.
That's the funny one that you brought up to me is people concerned about the precision of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, to me, like I've thought about that quite a few times since you brought that up. Like, is it the precision of being able to pick, or are they concerned about like, all right, are we just going to be having stacking tolerance errors of chips packing and not being able to clear that?
Yeah. That's what we get all the time is like, hey, what are we going to do about chips? And we ask people the same question every time is, well, what is the robot system? Every part loading system has that problem. And there's so many good solutions, chip fan, coolant, whatever. Chips are never the issue. And honestly, like, most of our business is turnkeys or working with distributors who are doing the turnkeys. Once you figure out the turnkey process, it's what we've seen is like most of our turnkeys are really high margin. And then there's, every once in a while, there's one that you lose a ton of money on. And that's why the margin is there. So that, it nets out, roughly 50% margins over the long term.
That's the joys of business right there. If you lose sleep over that loss leader, that 20% of projects, you're going to have a rough business.
Course. Yeah. But I mean, the thing about it is that's really nice for the distribution side. Like the integration is difficult to figure out the first time, right? So like the first time you do it, it takes some time to wrap around the work coordinate system. But everything is done through this macro template we built out. We just actually work on a huge rework of it.
Cool.
And that macro template, literally you're just giving it like, your XYZ stock size, your tray variables. And then from there, you're just inputting the numbers. And then all the math is done for you. So there's literally nothing to teach, nothing to train, like in the
How are you
implementation.
holding your raw stock typically in place then if you're going on the table? Are
So,
you vacuum holding that stuff, or what are you doing?
No. So we typically recommend like as a client just starting out, just put it in an XY grid, and we have like a little $2,000 fully adjustable one that you can just lay out, and then the vast majority of people will just laser cut a tray or whatever. When we're doing real turkeys, we typically are going to go to magazines because you can just fit an order of magnitude more parts. So maybe let's say you have like a 2x3 inch part. Maybe you can fit 40 of them on the machine table once you put the 2-out pallet there. We go to magazines and now we can fit 400. And usually the goal with customers is let's get till lights out. Let's get a 72-hour run to go through the weekend.
What are you doing for the magazines? I haven't seen that, I guess, on your website.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about that's one thing that is kind of a part of the transition of business is we started really thinking, hey, we're just going to sell spindle grippers and vices and widgets. And we really kind of moved entirely to like building an ecosystem and giving the customer a solution.
That's awesome.
And now we're trying to walk this line where we still want transparent pricing. Like we want the price of the price of the price, Joe Schmo pay the exact same amount as, mega corporation publicly traded.
Yeah. I like that approach to your business. The hiding the prices and the distribution model.
No one wants to send an RFQ.
Yeah. You're always like, am I getting the same price as the neighbor?
Yeah. So that makes that very black and white. But, we're trying to now walk that line of like, we have this thing that has to be an RFQ because your part might be really complex, but we have to give you transparent hardware pricing. So like, because of that, we have, I think on our website, like, I don't know, 40, 50 SKUs, and we have another 25. They're kind of like, they're like little knives in the Swiss Army knives that we pop out when the right part comes up. So, a lot of the more complicated trays, the magazines, they're not at the point where we just want to sell someone a pallet and expect them to self-implement it. And really, to be honest, with the 2-op pallet, the like included when we do a turnkey, at least, it's a little different with every distributor. We're getting 4 hours of phone support as part of the package. So usually that's looking like a couple hours of Zoom training, and within maybe 3 hours of total training plus setup, where we're involved, they get the thing working. That's really critical because that first stage usually is enough where, good, talented programmer or machinist can rinse and repeat it across multiple parts. And that's really what, our models kind of become for the mid-sized shops. If they have some, a couple of really talented, smart guys, we just want to do one turnkey, and then we just sell them hardware.
Pass it off.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And then, like there are plenty of the mega corporations or aerospace shops where they're like, either they just want it handled, or sometimes, they just don't want the responsibility if the project fails, and we're able to guarantee them an outcome where, like, we don't make the part to your spec, you get money back.
Okay.
So like a lot of the bigger shops will just, they'll just do 20 grand, new turnkey, new pallet, every single part number.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if you were holding with vacuum, if there were some synergies when we collaborate with our vacuum fixture systems at all.
I want to try it. Are you pulling vacuum off Venturi, or are you?
So we do both. If you're dry machining, we'll recommend going to like a Bush pump or Koval or something like that. And then if you're, standard coolant machining, we'll drop a Venturi.
Yeah, that's one thing that might be of interest is, our little instant solenoid kits. Have you seen those guys? We have I can see it behind me here, right there, a little box with the little switches here.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So there's just magnets on the side of your machine. And then for your like cost control, it just plugs directly into the IO board. And then you have a solenoid. So like, rather than the solenoid being a couple hour process, that gives you 2 solenoids with a manual override switch. It takes like 5 minutes. But I would say there's about equal number of people using it on our stuff as there is like controlling a random chunk or Pearson pallet. Cause
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Because like you can buy this, and you don't have to buy, the cost or the Doosan programmable air stuff.
Yeah, that would be an interesting synergy between the two of us. We should chat about that probably.
Yeah.
Further on that conversation.
But yeah, I mean, it's a neat little product. I mean, I've done manual solenoid installations, I don't know, half a dozen times, and you always think I'll do this in 20 minutes. And then like, the ground wire is correct, and, is there interference, and it's probably not optically isolated.
How much is one of those?
So we sell them for $7.89 with a little pendant.
Okay. And then you have one that'll work for all Doosons, I take it?
Well, so the way it's built, it'll work with anything that just has a relay. So we have people using them on UR robots, on FANUC robots. So if you have a 24-volt out, we have a little adapter kit. And it's pretty much the whole industry, whether it's CNC or robots, is standardized for the IO being, 24-volt out, or, a M code triggers a relay. So this just monitors the state. It's optically isolated so that, I've seen some sketchy wiring from customers and DIY things here and there. So the optical isolation is really critical, so that, they can't fry that $2,000 board that's managing all IO on the machine.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Yeah. So, do you want to talk about marketing at all? I know that's kind of been on both of our minds.
Yeah, we've chatted about that. Where do you want to go on marketing? Because that's a rabbit hole. I did sign up for that Forbes. I submitted my applications.
I need to submit it too. I thought, for whatever reason, I think somebody mentioned it was a $2 million threshold that we'll cross this year, but we weren't at last year to do and it's only $1 million threshold, which we've been way past for a long time. So I'm definitely gonna have to do the Forbes Business Council application, see where it goes.
I'll let you know. I submitted that. That was the first thing I did when I got into the office this morning, was type that in and submitted it for your recommendation.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that I think we're talking about, I'm just kind of, really getting into the marketing. I know you've been doing a better job than us for a while. I just am starting to get the feeling like, our industry is like just really weird when it comes to marketing, because you have just such a spectrum, at least for us, from the one guy who started on his own to make a machine shop up through, 100 machines in, an ES9100 factory. And how you target those people, how do you get in front of the right people is just super difficult. And, it means, like trade shows, obviously, at least I think, are going to be a slam dunk. IPS is our first show. But aside from that, I'm kind of still figuring out, what are the right mediums? Is there paid mediums that make financial sense? Um, Marketing's
Yeah,
hard.
we're still trying to figure out kind of the same thing. While we might be further or invested more dollars in different areas, uh, I don't really think I have the silver bullet or the
Yeah.
answer. I know that they all work. It's just which one's driving the most profitable option, or the most profitable option of them all. Trade shows is obviously a clear winner. I think everybody knows that that's a solid investment. You're not looking for a lot of leads out of them. At least that's the way we look at it. You go to Automate. We're doing Pack Expo this year. And if you get one solid project out of that, it more than offset it for us.
Right. Yeah.
Now we're trying to get more than that, but that's all it takes. I mean, we've had the advertising of us being at those shows allow us to get projects and close them prior to even going to the shows, which is really fun.
Yeah.
So just the PR of saying we're going, what we're going to be doing there, what's getting released. All of a sudden we have things coming in our inbox and it's like, oh, this is interesting. And this has happened over the last, let's say 9 months, or the last 2 shows that we've done. So automating this, that started really playing out where we hadn't seen that prior.
Are you going to Automate in May?
Yeah, we automate every year.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
We're going to hopefully do our first Automate next year.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how Automate works for you.
Yeah, that's the other thing of like, what shows do we go to? Like there's like Design Deport where it's like, mostly vendors. And we were like considering going to that, but like almost to show the vendors as opposed to show like the procurement guys, right?
Yeah, we did Design Deport. Part was actually our first trade show we've ever done, and we've never been back.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious now that we've gotten better at it,
right?
if it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, what's weird is, whenever I have to do like an NCMA event, like, or I went to some paperless parts events, like those have always been awesome because we're selling to job shops, so like everyone in the room is a customer, right? Which is kind of like a unique industry advantage. But then you're also in the spot where like you don't want to be too salesy. And I've actually gotten this a lot. I'm like so enthusiastic about our product where I could just unintentionally find myself trying to convince people to use spindle grippers. Like, even when they just clearly don't want to hear like Michael say another word about CNC machine tending. Which, is its own problem. But yeah, trying to find like where to allocate marketing spend in an industrial B2B business, I have found super challenging, especially at like this middle tier. We're not super small, so it's not like there's no budget, but when you're spending $10,000 to $20,000 a month, like where do you put that money to get the ad spend? And then, I think you have this problem even more than we do of like, okay, well, our projects might be $500,000. I mean, for us, our projects are going to range in size from maybe $10,000 to $50,000. How do we, because the numbers are relatively low, it's not like a consumer product where we can go and get good data from like, here's our click-through rate, here's our attribution.
You're not driving to get that 3%. Like I said, I had that other business in the past where it was like, you're selling a $20 product or $30 product, and you can continue to turn that and you can drive that conversion rate right to where you need it. But
yeah,
for when we're looking for a smaller set of leads to make a significant swing in the business, you're looking for that, a couple options.
Yeah.
That's
and figuring out like, how do I even say what the return on ad spend is if, we're doing, 10 or 20,000 dollar projects, because like the number of leads that takes to get to that number of conversions is so high that, and how do we separate a good lead from a bad lead, especially when we're doing something like, meta advertising as opposed to like,
I think it's just like what you're saying with the EOS. It's like a diet. You
Yeah.
got to pick one. You got to stick with it until you get enough data to make a good decision. And until you have data, you have to trust that you make the right decision and play it out.
Yeah. And that's the one thing of, you know, I have like a weekly meeting with our CPA firm, and she like kind of coaches me by the numbers. And she always tells me like, oh, you got to have like, you know, you got to watch your conversion rates, this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, no, like this is all intuition. Like, you know, we don't have enough transactions going through here. You know, if you just listen to our website, it's like, oh, we have a 0.1% conversion rate. But what it's not showing is like all the things that aren't attributed, which is like where all the real money for the business is, which is, talk to our sales guy, here's your quote, we do 2 hours worth of presentations, and then it turns into a turnkey, which is like, those are the slam dunk project for us, not when someone goes and buys a spindle gripper.
Interesting. It's interesting to hear that you have that CPA conversation on watching that level of numbers. Is that something?
Yeah, I mean, that a lot of that I think is going to be shifted with EOS, because a lot of it was like, I'm just not the numbers guy. Like I'm not the, at the end of the day, I'm really kind of reconciling, like I'm a product guy. Like there's going to be like, I'm not a San Gradios, but I'm like closer to Steve Jobs than like, whoever is the head of Microsoft. I love the like working on the product, fixing the problems. And I'm very passionate about like thinking to the outcome, and it's less important to me how we do that. That's really where I think with EOS, the big priority for us internally is that I have the people in my leadership team who are running operations, making sure it's smoothly, making sure, people's products work perfectly, making sure that we have a good sales process and a good HR process and all the other things that keep the wheels turning so that my, dream of, spindle gripper every shop can somehow come true.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, hopefully that'll transition into an internal process. But that was one of those Band-Aid fixes. And there's a lot of Band-Aid fixes we've been ripping off because, we doubled in size over 4 months in terms of headcount. And that's
really, and that's that level of being able to rip those Band-Aids, because we're seeing the same thing where it was like, we just can't justify the spend to do things right. And it's like, you hated saying those things. It was like, Matt, we need to do this. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah. And you're in this mid-sized business, and the reality is like, you want to keep growing, and you have to like grow at a sustainable rate, but triage the issues and deal with them when you have more scale.
Yeah. Cause it's otherwise, like you said, the growth, eats cash for lunch. You can grow yourself out of business.
Oh yeah.
Like it's not that most businesses go out of business because of sales or opportunities. It's because they don't manage those correctly.
Yeah. Cash flow. It's boring, but, and we're encountering that a lot too, because we went from contract manufacturing, and that, we ran most of that down. We moved then into engineering consulting, but with that, we're billing everything, we're retainer up front. And, over time, we kind of realized that overall, the automation business actually was a lot more similar to that than a product sale widget business, because there's a lot of work and a lot of service to give people an outcome rather than to give people a gripper. And that has led to all like us intentionally slowing our growth, because now we have the difficulty of a service business and the carry forward inventory cost of a product business. So like, we charge 50% down on turkeys. And, we're like, that money is just going straight into inventory. And, every month we're growing 10, 15%. We're buying more inventory to stay ahead of the curve, and, while still trying to keep enough, cash in the bank. And that's meant we have to intentionally pull back on our growth, which has been hard for me with my, over ambition.
No, I definitely feel you on that one. So it's like, you want to, all right, how do we double again next year?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, how do
we're still healing from doubling. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. How do we just optimize what we have and make sure we maintain the team we have so we can double over the next 2 years, let's say, and keep morale high and a very strong team at that point? It's been the real thing. Like I love that our tenure just continues to rise because our team sticks with us through these challenging times, let's say, of high stress growth.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's a whole struggle on its own. Of like, you can't fix every problem right now. You have to fix the biggest problems first. You have to make sure, all your customers are as happy as you can keep them. And sometimes that means that as you're growing, some of your internal processes are going to suffer. and you have to just, get them documented and well enough and get enough, all those backups in place. And to me, that really comes down to people of like you definitely can support a different employee now as opposed to like the ideal employee, 5 years from now. Because like,
Oh
at
yeah.
least in my eyes, like right now, I need pretty much everyone to be self-sufficient. I need, everyone to have a little bit of ambition. And to me, like that really requires that like, it's the most important that you have the best employee earliest. Obviously everyone wants to have great employees all the time, but if you don't have great employees early who can handle, things without a perfect process or who can just build the process on their own, it's really hard to grow.
It's definitely a culture and a willingness to learn are the big things that we
Yeah.
found that you hire for. You don't necessarily hire for, hey, we give you a SolidWorks test. Can you pass this
Right.
in under 12 minutes or something like that? I've never done that. It
Mhm.
makes no sense in my mind to do that. But there's times in the past where we definitely hired who was like, oh, you're the most qualified strictly based on skills.
Right.
And it was like, that wasn't the right decision. Now, everybody that's on our team today was hired because they're critical thinkers. They know how to solve problems. They have a positive attitude, which is so critical
Right.
because it's so easy to just like get beat up in engineering of like, nothing's working for this week. And it's like, you
Mhm.
just have to be like, it's going to work tomorrow. It's going to work tomorrow
Yeah.
kind of attitude. So it's like that positive attitude. And then it's just the willingness to learn and figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, the guys that I love hiring the most, I just love hiring guys who love CNC machines. It sounds ridiculous, but I just love CNC machines. Like,
Oh
I
yeah.
built the first one when I was like 11 or 12 on this book. I was like, how to build a CNC machine, and built this like, crappy, wooden CNC router machine. It was all stepper driven, and like it didn't have shielded cables. So occasionally like, just gradually you'll move over, like cutting it in layers. It didn't work very well. But the minute that I have like someone applying and they're like, oh yeah, I'm building a CNC machine in my garage, or oh, like, I have a Tormach in my garage. I just light up and I'm like, because the guys who love it, like they're the ones who
Oh, it-
they want it and they're obsessed with it, and that just means they're going to know everything about it.
it's a serious addiction, and it's not an
Yeah.
addiction you have to go to college for.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's there's so much stuff on YouTube you can learn about it. I mean, the first machine shop that I was ever really in, I set up for them with no experience. And over
Mhm.
the course of 4.5 years, brought in nearly 1,000 SKUs, landed them a fleet of CNC machines and a team around it. And
Mhm.
I had built a little router thing was my prior to it,
Yeah.
and basically just piled that through because Mach 3 is just a joy. And
Oh
then
yeah. Mach 3.
just like,
PTSD right
per-
there.
what was that?
It's PTSD when you say Mach 3.
Oh
That
my
like
gosh.
flashing
Yeah.
V-stop.
Yeah. I remember like I
Yeah.
had this little pen, like the first time I ever ran that thing was like, all right, I'm going to try it with a pen to draw before
Mhm.
I do anything with this little spring loaded. First test, just pen straight into the table, just crushes everything. But
Yeah.
I'm just looking at it, just start laughing like, yeah, it's about right for me.
Yeah. A funny story. So Anish, I apologize if you're listening to this. So Anish learned head of engineering, and he's not actually a degree in mechanical engineer. But the way I found him, we had a job posting for a while, and I just couldn't find the right guy for a mechanical engineering position. But we were still doing contract manufacturing, and this guy Anish, who's our head of engineering now, was he like ordered water jet parts for a CNC router he was building.
Okay.
And he just kept calling me with all these annoying questions. I was like, oh, how do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do this? But he was just so enthusiastic. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to call this guy and see if he wants a job. Because like that enthusiasm for like, I want to build a CNC machine. I'm like, that's exactly what I want.
Yeah,
And,
that's
I
awesome.
called him and God bless him. We still commutes like an hour and a half every day.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
he lives in Redland,
You
and
need to help him get a house or apartment closer by.
yeah. He doesn't want to move, and he's happy. So he's happy. I'm
Okay.
happy. But the guys who love it that are like really, they're so hard to find. But when you find them, you're just like, those are the guys who really transform your business.
Oh yeah. You're spot on. Yeah, we've definitely got a few of those key team members. It's interesting. Instagram's been one of those where people have reached out to us. We've got one team member, one of our initial hires.
Yep.
That's how he found us. It was like right at the beginning of COVID. We started doing some marketing and he just messaged like, "Hey, are you hiring?" And it was like, I wish
Right.
at that time. But then we ended up posting the job and he must have set a reminder or something about our company or something. And he got pinged and he applied.
Yeah.
He was like one of the first people to apply. It's like, gee, it's
Wow.
awesome.
Yeah. I had this guy message me and he's like, "Hey, I'm building like a shrink fit machine." And he sent me like this immaculate CAD model and then, he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm building it for," I asked him questions about it. And he's like, "I'm building it for my school." I'm like, "Wait, you're in college?" I see like this perfect fusion model.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, like the minute you graduate, like I want to snap you up, like move to Los
Oh,
Angeles."
yeah.
Those guys who are just doing it because they love it. I mean, that's that's the gold standard for us. And um, and it's so technical and nerdy and dorky that, every time I've tried to hire an outside firm or, whatever, like the magic is lost, in the marketing because it's like, they don't have, the passion or willingness to figure out what the hell a work offset is. And I don't want just, our messaging to be like, "Oh, this is how you do the thing." I want to bring that enthusiasm of like, here's why this is so awesome to the market.
Yeah.
And
And that's a tough one. Yeah. You have to educate. That's where I went down the road of hiring a journalist.
Yeah.
We were talking about marketing. Because what you're talking about there is you need somebody that's gonna be in your shop listening to the conversations. I mean, our journalist Sean, he gets invited to engineering meetings, he gets brought into those, and then he just starts translating what we're talking into educational content for the customers. He's so good at picking up voice of what we need to deliver or relaying things. And I think that's just like a journalist trait, and he's definitely exceptional at it, but it's being able to ask the right questions and then turn that into something that's digestible for somebody that's not at your level.
right.
Is it, like you said, you have an educational barrier you have to break. So now you have to figure out where that person is and then bring them up.
Yeah, and that's, a whole other thing of like, now that we're really focused on selling to customers, like, who have more than 10 vertical mills in the facility, we got to try to sell to the owner and the machine shop guy who's actually going to implement it. And we have to sell to the procurement person. And like, we have to make all those three people happy. And that's a balance to walk. So we're talking about, ROI for the owner. We're talking about ease of use for the guy running it. And, we're talking about the smoothness of the purchasing process for the procurement person. So the marketing is hard, but kind of where I landed was, I thought I was going to hire a marketing person or a journalist. And I was just like, you know what? No one's as enthusiastic as a product as me. Like there's a lot of BS that I shouldn't be doing. Like, I'm not an operations guy. So I'm really trying to force myself with the EOS process. So let go of those operations things, stop having to be, the big boss that someone has to ask the question of, is this okay? And hopefully that frees me up to, roll up the camera and bring a little CNC machining enthusiasm to the world.
Yeah, I think to that comment, the one big thing of, everybody always coming for questions.
Yeah.
A piece of advice I got early on in my career, actually the book's still on my shelf. When I used to work at Vortex Optics, one of the owner's sons in the marketing side actually bought me that book and just recommended, learning about that. And the big advice he got on getting people to stop asking questions was the first thing when they come into your office, ask them what they think.
Yeah.
So more times than not, everybody that's coming, it's already spent way more time than you've thought about solving the problem. And they probably already have the answer.
Mm-hmm.
They just need reassurance on it. And
Oh
that's
yeah, for
basically
sure.
how he phrased it. So he's like, just
Yeah.
ask that. And I've done that so many times. Then all of a sudden those questions start getting less.
Yeah.
And
Well, what
they're
I would
just
say to that,
big
Matt,
ones.
is that sounds like sales. Yeah. And I'm talking about marketing, right? Marketing is making people aware of the product. And then hopefully we answer as many of their questions as we can through the marketing. And then, sales is when they send an inquiry and they're like, I have a part and I want to turnkey it. Right.
I'm saying internal operations side though.
Oh yeah.
I'm not saying selling to anybody.
Okay.
I'm just saying from an operation. So, like you said, you're trying to
Right.
step back, trust the team member. The best way to give them that trust is to just ask them what they think. And they're going to give you a couple ways to do it. And
Yeah.
you just agree with the one that makes the most sense for you typically, unless you have a strong
Right.
opinion.
Well,
Otherwise.
I'm trying to just step back and say like, there's this book I read like a couple weeks ago called How to Buy Back Your Time. And there's a quote in there of like, 80% done by somebody else is 100% awesome.
That's funny because I'm listening to that book right now.
Yeah. It's
It's
a really good book.
I came across him on YouTube and I started watching
Ali
his YouTube.
Abdul, or like, no, it was, I think that's the YouTube channel.
It's Dan Martell, isn't it?
No. I was talking about that was a review of the book I was talking about that led me to the book. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, it's Dan. I mean, that's
Yeah,
the book.
yeah, yep,
Dan Martell.
yep, same book.
That's a good one.
But I'm really just trying to be like, okay, like let go. And then like when I catch an issue or something that I feel like is a problem, I have to ask myself, is that a problem or is that just not the way Michael would have done it? Right. And if the answer is, it's just not the way Michael would have done it, I'm starting to interrupt myself and be like, okay, you are the parent of the organization. You are not the organization, right? It's, putting
it's still
that in the right
100%
place.
freaking awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's done 80% as good as you would have done.
Mhm. So, like we have to build this crate and of course we're, rushing because it's our first show and we didn't realize just how much work this was going to be. We should have sent it to some, shop to build it. And that wasn't us. But, regardless, now I have, our head of engineering and a couple other guys working on this. And, I kept checking in and I was like, you know what? I just need to trust him. and I told him, I'm going to come back in 2 days and I expect there to be a crate. I expect it to work. And sure enough, that's what happened. And that's what I'm trying to force myself to do is pull back and trust like the awesome people I hired to do their jobs.
Yeah. That's where the building the crates, having grown up on a farm and my dad, loving cutting down trees and having a sawmill right next to our farm.
Right. Yeah.
He if I need a crate built for something, he'll go cut the trees down or pull some lumber we've milled and then build a crate for us out of it. It's comical.
Yeah. Do you still have this? I have like this weird relationship with bootstrapping where like some places that, I will not hesitate to spend money, whether it's hiring people or investing in machinery, but then, there's random things like, for sure, like that crate would have been one, even if we have the time, I'd be like, we can build a crate.
Oh yeah.
Do you do that at all? Or are you mostly like stomped out that like problematic bootstrapper from the beginning days?
I call that cost containers.
Yeah.
So I see this in a lot of businesses I go in that are bootstrapped or multi-generation. I see it in third generations, oddly enough. It's that mindset of looking at containing the cost, not looking at the opportunities or the growth. So that's definitely one that I challenge myself on. But there's things like I also just enjoy doing. Like, all right, if I'm going to build a crate with my dad on the weekend, we always go to the farm on Saturdays. Like that's always been something I've done since I could walk. Like it's Saturday breakfast with dad, Saturday farm time. And he's retired now. So he needs like the farm's we rent out most of it. We do like hobby farming at this point. So we have like blueberries, hazelnut, apple trees.
Right.
But then he's retired. So there's like no work when we go to the farm and I don't like fishing. So we're not going to go fishing or something like that. So it's like, all right, now we inject other projects and that's something we do.
Yeah. I mean, that's still something I'm, because I love the product and R&D stuff so much, I'm still trying to work out like how much of this should be me and how much of this should be, one of the engineers as opposed to, like there are days where I want to go in and make something and sometimes I let myself and I'm still trying to figure out like where do I fit exactly in the organization and what's, R&D and what's me doing someone else's job when I shouldn't be.
So in terms of the engineering question, I haven't hardcore engineered in 2 years.
Yeah.
I haven't machined in 2 years. It's really weird. We have a Datron. I don't know if I could run a part out of it anymore. It's so long. I mean, it's been over. It actually is probably closer to 3 years since we hired David on our team. He's been running it. CAD, I know, is about 2 years since I got pulled out of that. The only time I came back to anything was that MRS that we were building was for a trade show. And I think I committed like 40 hours where I was like, all right, I'm going to go steal a CAD PC on these couple weekends and a Friday when a guy was out. And I helped design some of the stuff because I knew our engineering team was just short staffed and I was asking him to squeeze through this project.
Right. You know,
So that was it. Otherwise,
well,
yeah,
you don't have you don't have the addiction. I think you enjoy the like running the business more than the
I have an
actual
addiction
R&D.
to like industrial design and
Yeah. Yeah.
product on that. I love the looks. Like there's like a vision of like, I want things to look a certain way. And that's where I need to definitely step back or
Mhm.
pull my self back. 'Cause it's like, all right, is this going to serve what the customer needs? And does adding this industrial design add value to the customer, or is it pleasing myself?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Like that's one that I really struggle with.
Yeah. For me, it's like a question of like, I'm trying to, in that book, there, one thing it talked about that I really liked was the 10-80-10 rule, where like you
Yes.
start at the beginning, you give like all the parameters, then you let the engineers do most of the work and you come back and do the polish. And I think there are places where I want to do that, but then there's other things like, there's some times where I can just churn through, product R&D so fast. It's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, let the engineer do that. It'll be 2 months. Cause it'll
What
be
I
like,
what I found over, sorry, cut you off.
oh
I'll
yeah,
let you
you're
go.
good. You're good. Yeah.
What I've found over the last couple of years of stepping out of engineering is it's giving the goal of where you're trying to be rather than the details there. It's
Yeah.
what do we want? And then stepping back, it's very tough for me to do that because it's like, all right, now I just have to walk away for a week and have my
Mhm.
weekly check-ins with team members or our project department check-ins. And if stuff's moving in the right direction, I need to just continue to contain myself. It's tough,
Yeah. Yeah.
but giving the high level goals of
Well,
what
yeah,
I,
I think that what I was saying though is like what I'm trying to do is like enjoy it responsibly. Almost like,
oh,
building stuff is like alcohol or something. But they're like, okay, I've kind of come to, hey, prototype this new CNC. It'll be a couple of days, like, knock yourself out. And what I'm trying to stop myself from doing is like, oh, we're like, there's this longer term project of like building this palletizing robot that will, has been on pause for a little bit, but something like that is, a months long, probably $100,000 of R&D is going to go into it.
yeah. What are you
I'm
trying to
like,
do?
huh?
What are you trying to do on the palletizer side?
Well, no, like a CNC machine doing palletizing.
Okay.
Not,
Gotcha.
yeah,
So
like
you're saying like a full pallet going in and out?
not like a pallet, like pallet fork pallet, but like like a Rolla style or a Pearson or some
Yeah.
pallet. Yeah.
Pallet pool style.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like pallet cool, but like vertically stacked with a rotary axis robot.
Okay. Yeah.
I've been trying to do that,
That's exciting.
those big projects, that 10-80-10. And then, I'm giving myself the fun little things, but make sure they're constrained to a couple days so I can run the bigger business.
That makes a lot of sense. It's a good call.
Yeah. And also having a leadership structure in place so that when I do that, it's not causing havoc, at which it definitely has in the past.
The havoc of you stepping in.
Oh,
that,
I would just pull a machinist who's working on another project and be like, we're doing R&D today. And
oh yeah,
yeah.
that's definitely a problem, especially if you pull on haphazardly, I guess.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Really
And
what
yeah,
that
it
was.
hasn't been. And now we're kind of making everything much more granular. Like, okay, you're in charge of engineering, you're in charge of production, you're in charge of sales. Where we're getting to like the point of having like departments and people in charge of the departments, and I think that's going to get cleaned up a lot.
Yeah, we've gone to more of needs on projects. So we're
Yeah.
an entire team for the entire mission. We're not big enough in my opinion yet to have like, a mechanical engineering or something like to that level or software. Like
Well,
we
yeah,
have,
and these like 4 or 5 departments, they have like 2 people each, right? It's like 2 or 3 people.
yeah,
per
or I
department.
guess managers.
Yeah.
I don't want everybody to have a manager title because we're like 13
Yeah.
people. So
Right.
if you did that for every department, I'd have 10 managers on the team. That
Oh, for sure.
so yeah, it's always been, but you're in a different, so for you, it's a little bit different because we do project leads, which that person's running, say $500,000 to $1 million project.
Right.
So them leading that project is a huge responsibility then.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, like, I think it just is coming down to like, what's the content and like, how do you structure it? And like, to me, that like project lead, if there's people like directly underneath them, it's kind of like a department, right? It's just that,
Yeah,
with the consulting business model, that department is going to shift in 6 months or a year when the project's completed.
exactly. Okay.
Cool. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think we really cruised through an hour here. I was just looking at
Yeah.
the timer here and I was like, holy crap, we're actually 8 minutes over. So by the time they cut the that's and all the other stuff that we don't want in here out, we probably have about an hour, but I'm all ears if you want to chat about other stuff. We can talk about the bookshelf. Those are the we continue to want to talk about books. Have you seen
Yeah.
the
I can't
we should
see all your camera right now. Oh, I can extend you. Okay. What were you gonna say?
should be like right there. Yeah, we should chat about books as like one of these topics, like things that we've really enjoyed. Because I enjoy reading a decent amount, but more it's on Audible.
Oh,
And
I
it's
am 100% Audible. I don't read any physical books. Like I can barely get through an article.
so I will listen to Audible 2 to 3 times. And if I get to that point where I like the book so much that I've done Audible 3 times, I'll buy it, read it. And then I butcher it with notes. Like you like how to grow your small business. And you can see like everything just dog-eared and destroyed on this book. And that's what I found. I love writing in it. You'll find like my thought process inside them because I'll just destroy them.
Yeah.
But
I'm more of a like I try to like kind of absorb the book. I don't really take notes. I don't do well with like physical books, but I'll just listen. Like some books like Traction, I've read like 10 times.
yeah,
Listened to 10 times.
yeah, you have to like for
Yeah.
Audible. I feel like you have to listen because your brain wanders so much. At least
Yeah.
mine does. Like,
Oh yeah, definitely.
ADHD to the max.
Yeah.
So
Well, you're getting through
Alright.
the full book, so it can't be that bad.
yeah, it's exactly.
But yeah,
Anything you want to cover or prep for next week that we could cover right now since we're both on here?
no, I thought I mentioned one of the cliches. I'm rereading it because the EOS system told us to. It's Good to Great, Jim Collins' book. Sure. Have you read
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
Good to Great. It's the one
Oh,
that
yeah, I would be like,
that-
I'd be surprised that you hadn't. But
that's the one that manager at Vortex gave me. So
oh yeah,
that's kind of the start of those self-help books. I'd never really read any of those prior to that.
I
was
read
good.
so many, and the like when I was doing the startup days, I'm so desperate to like figure out how to run a business. And every book under the sun.
Yeah, it almost seems like the application's just as important as absorbing the content though.
Oh, it's more important for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
So
where it gets hard. Is like, what do you apply, and what's your biggest problem?
Yeah.
And the yeah the
you could turn books into the book of the month club is what I like to call it. Is like you get a bunch of people that read a book and now they're on this change initiative with that book within your organization. And, it's
and then
like,
they read
that's not
another
what I
book.
want. Yeah, that's the quarter. Yeah, the book of the month club.
Yep. Yeah,
So
I mean that's what you got to avoid. I'm the just to find a thing and stick to it and keep it the priority. And you know
exactly.
with EOS, like paying so much money for it, it's almost like having a personal trainer. Like you'll show up at the gym if you're paying the guy to be there. At least I would.
You had a personal trainer?
Oh yeah, that was how I would work out, because otherwise I'd give myself excuses. But you know, if you're paying $100 an hour, like you're going to show up.
Holy crap.
And
Yeah, no kidding.
it's kind of that same thing with a EOS implementer. Is like, well, I'm going to show up because we're spending all this money on this initiative, which is
Yeah.
There's those like weird things in business that just like things that you can kind of almost exploit how your brain works to like get the outcome you want,
Oh,
rather
for
than
sure.
falling back onto your whatever was going to
It's
happen.
so easy to fall into comfort. It's too easy to fall into comfort zone.
Mhm.
So,
I don't think either of us have that problem, but
no, I actually have. It's interesting because it's in that buyback.
buy back your time.
Buy back your time. It's I'm the one that if I'm getting too comfortable, I get nervous,
Me too.
and then I force change.
Yeah.
Or I look for things like it's too smooth.
I got
That
called
means that-
out in that book. Yeah, because
Yeah,
there
that
was
one called me out. It's like, all right, yeah, that's exactly how I've been. Or like in the past, I've moved too quickly on all times. So I'm like, oh, it's all going good again. It's time to move, and it's like, maybe just
yeah,
play
maybe
this out.
chill out and have more gradual effective change. Yeah, that specifically the website thing. It was like he was talking about, things get too smooth, and then all of a sudden you start reworking your website, and I was, oh shoot, I've done that 5 times. Just route out new
Okay.
website.
Yeah,
The
that's interesting. But your business does change too. Is the other thing.
yeah.
You learn a lot of things. I don't think it's necessarily you need to rebuild it. It's you always have to get
Oh
back to
yeah,
mark.
it's not literally a ground up, but I'm definitely in the same boat as you. When I get too comfortable, I'm like, oh, we gotta push harder, row faster,
Yeah,
do all the things, and yeah,
exactly. That's probably a great way to end this one.
yeah. Let's row slower. We're gonna call it a day.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. I'm gonna go home. You have a dog, right?
I have 2 dogs. Yeah,
Okay, cool. What kind of dogs are they?
Shiba and a golden doodle.
Okay, we have a golden retriever, and I'm sure Honey would love it if I'd get home to give her a nice long walk. So
Awesome.
it'll be kind of in the
Cool.
end.
We'll have a good evening, afternoon, whatever time it is over there.